Tonight's episode of Board Chitless is sponsored by The Game Steward. The Game Steward is an online game store offering Kickstarter board games out of print and imported games at reasonable prices. It's time to play.
Hello there, Chitheads, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Board Chitless. I'm Leki, and this week I'm joined by
Tristan.
And this week we've been playing One Deck Dungeon. One Deck Dungeon is a Dexploration dungeon crawler.
Nice.
Yeah. We can coin that one and use it in the board game archives. So it's for 1 to 2 players. It's a compact game. It's like everything fits in a very small box, and the objective is to work your way through a deck of cards with your character and do the dungeon crawl experience. So how well do you think it worked, Tristan?
I think there's a lot of game in a little box with this. It's there's maybe 40 or 50 cards, I think, if that, and it distills the whole dungeon exploring thing down into a very sort of compact experience, which is mostly predicated on dice rolls. So you're rolling your dice and allocating them to monsters. It's very computer gamey, so you're literally bashing monsters and leveling up and taking the gear, but it's got that sort of fairly cool mechanism where each card is used for multiple different purposes. So when you defeat an enemy or a trap or whatever, you can rotate the card and turn it into either a skill, an item, or some experience points, or in the very rare use, you can change the nature of the potion, the healing potion that you have. So you start out with one healing potion, you can turn it into a different kind of potion, something we never did.
No, it got ignored, didn't it? Quite a bit, that.
Soundly ignored. But yeah, no, so you're working your way through a dungeon, you're just flipping cards basically, and then you randomly fight a goblin or a slime or any number of sort of D&D tropes. There are 5 sort of classes to choose from: warrior, priest, whatever. And all of the artwork is female. I'm sure this is like, anybody who's heard of the game knows this. They deliberately chose to exclude male characters from the game, which doesn't really bother me. I personally would have liked to have both options, but it makes no difference really. The artwork's very cartoony, not amazing. It does what it says on the tin. It's it's functional. It gives you an idea of what you're up against and stuff, and it's cartoony, I guess. Very sort of family friendly.
Yeah,
sort of silly goblin type art and stuff.
Yeah, especially with the design of the icons and stuff on the card, it gives you that like a Legend of Zelda style NES sort of feel to it. It all looks a little bit, not 8-bit in terms of the artwork, but gives a bit of an 8-bit vibe. You're playing some of the older games, like Baldur's Gate and stuff. It just gives you that sort of like rough edge sort of quality to it. And like you're saying, it's like noticed at the beginning when we started playing the game, like sort of a gender balance being towards the female side of it, but then you just don't pay it another second thought after that. Just kind of get over it quite quickly and just play the game.
It's not really something you concentrate on your character or like your personal growth or storytelling. It's literally, what thing do I bash next?
Yeah, but talking about personal growth, really, the designer Chris Chislick. I think we agreed on Chris Chislick. He's done a very good job at creating quite a lot of gameplay out of not too many different components. Yeah. The dice mix and match works quite well. So for basically you get a load of icons on your character. So there's swords, agility, then there's mana or magic, and then you've got your health. So you don't have any dice for health. But then for each icon of everything else you've got, that means you roll 1 dice, and you just off away you go, and you can just mix and match some of them. If you don't get the rolls that you think you need, then there's this really cool mechanic where you can trade 2 dice in of any colour for a heroic dice, which you can spend on anything, but that will only come in at the same value as your lowest roll. So if you still can roll 1s or 3s, it's not going to do too much, but it means that you might be able to convert some of your agility dice into attack dice or mana dice when you need it, which I thought was quite cool. It means that you don't really roll yourself straight out of a turn.
Yeah,
gives you a second chance.
you've always got options, haven't you?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
each character has a separate couple of skills that they can use as well. And as you're leveling up and adding more skills to your character through the encounters you overcome, you get more and more options as you go. Sometimes it's just like one extra sword dice, one extra yellow dice sort of thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like you can spend 2 yellow dice to trade them in for 1 yellow and 2 pink dice.
That was it, yeah.
And then that's when the brain burning starts to kick in. Although it's not massively brain burning. We're not talking about like Mage Knight levels of complexity here. It's like, I have a 1. I could do with this 1 being a 3 or a 5.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about it as well is each boss, so there's 5 different bosses you can choose from, and each boss has their own like dungeon.
Yeah.
So you're going to run through the deck 2 or 3 times if you're lucky. If you don't crap out and die in the first or second encounter like Leki and I did in one of our playthroughs, we played 3 times tonight, and
So it was only the beginning dungeon.
the second was an ignominious end after, was it two encounters?
Something ridiculous.
We also kind of skipped over the rule where you can flee. If you don't like what you
Yeah.
see in an encounter, you can just ignore it. But there is potential knock-on effects for that to bite you on a bum later.
And that beetle didn't look too dangerous at first,
We
did
thought
it?
we could stand on the beetle, and then it stood on us. But yeah, so each boss has like a flip side to the card, and again, another example of the designer squeezing as much gameplay out of a small amount of content as possible is on the other side of the boss's card is its dungeon abilities. So the Yeti has the Yeti's cavern rules. So when you first run through the deck, each sort of trap or monster, those are the 2 encounters that you can have, has a specific boost that it gets from being in that part of the dungeon. And all you do when you go to the next level of the dungeon is slide the card, like the turn order card, down a little bit and reveal the next floor like ability.
Yeah.
And so they get slightly more complex as you go on until finally you get down to the 4th level and you just flip it over and fight whatever boss it is. In our case, I think it was the dragon tonight. Yeah,
The dragon first time round.
Yeah.
We didn't quite make it to the Hydra
in
that first game.
We got beaten by the Hydra, figured out it was a medium level difficulty and then slid down to the easy Dragon's Cave where we had slightly more success. But yeah, so again, it's a cool sort of thing where it's only a minor thing. It's 1 extra card, but that sort of gives you a flavour of the dungeon. It is very much mechanics. Like you there's no narrative. You're not sort of stringing a story together and seeing what happens. I mean, I guess you could if you really sort of
If you were
use your
super
imagination.
into it, you could, definitely. But like you're saying, it's just like it's a race to the end, really, isn't it? You've got to try and just survive, which is in itself quite a rewarding experience.
Definitely. And so I've played this a few times solo, and I'll be honest, it didn't blow me away. I love a lot of the mechanics in it. I love what they've done with it and everything.
Yeah.
But as sort of said to you, it's kind of hovering towards the trade pile.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I played it cooperatively, the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And that was actually a lot more fun,
Okay.
which surprised me because it's the darling of the sort of solo gaming world, or it was when it came out. It was a bit of a phenomenon. It had thousands, something like 4,000 or 5,000 backers on the Kickstarter, raised a ton of cash. And they've had a second one. We're playing with the 1-deck dungeon base game. There's like a forest version has come out since. And so the sort of appeal, I guess, for the solo player is it has, or the multiplayer game, is it has a campaign mode as well, which is a nice little touch. So there's a booklet where you can, each time you beat a dungeon or go down a level, you can tick a box. And once you've ticked enough boxes, you unlock another pink die or yellow die or another
bring
skill.
Some new skills in.
Yeah.
That's a really it's a nice way of bringing some extra flavour into the game because, like you said, what I was saying, it's quite straightforward. And once you've got your head around the mechanics, you're just kind of burning through the game. So it's a brilliant way of kind of mixing it up a little bit more, adding some replayable value to the game for players.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I really like what you were showing me the sheet earlier, and you're saying that there's certain XP tick boxes that you can only get from doing a hard or a medium dungeon. So you can't just go straight through, keep rinsing the dragon layer over and over and over again, and keep getting all these really cool
only
skills.
Only going to get you so far.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really nice touch
Again,
as well.
another little, and it's like paring down all these big ideas about leveling up, exploring dungeons and stuff, and just paring them down into real, focused, dice rolly, card flippy experience. And in that, it succeeds. Magnificently. Really, it's as a pared down dungeon crawling experience. You couldn't get quicker or more streamlined. And so playing it cooperatively with you tonight felt like a lot more. I think the load was off a little bit. I didn't have as many things to remember because it can get a little bit fiddly when you've got to remember the dungeon ability, the monster abilities, your hero abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not massively challenging, but
just having an extra person to keep tabs on all the sort of moving parts.
Yeah, and when, if I crap out on a roll, I can then sort of rely on you to sort of deliver the goods and vice versa.
That's it, yeah. And a couple of our skills, so our beginner skills when we played as the Paladin and the Rogue, in combat encounters, I could reroll my ones because of an ability you had.
Yeah.
And then in perils, you could reroll your ones because of an ability I had, which was quite a nice little sort of evening out mechanic, really. Keep a bit, make sure that we're working together and we're keeping an eye on what each of us doing.
And if you buy another box, you can have up to 3 or 4 players.
Yeah.
And I imagine there'd be a little more comboing then, between the players about the different abilities that they've got.
Yeah, I can see that being a bit more like a bit of a meatier game.
It would be a meatier game. It would add to the length, and I'm not sure at that point if that's where it might lose its appeal a little bit, because as a quick playing alternative to a game like Friday, for example, like one of these really short sort of fast jumping dungeon crawl experiences, it really works well. And we got through 3 games in a couple of hours tonight. But if there were 4 of us playing and it was going to go to 3 or 4 hours, I would I'd be looking at a different game. I'd be pulling out a different game.
Bearing in mind, we're going to be seeing the same traps and the same monster encounters. It's not like we're going to get, unless you got the Forest edition, it's not going to refresh it too much.
Yeah,
if you both have the base game.
I think even then, you'd want to be setting up a. I don't know. It might just be me, but I'd be wanting a bigger experience.
It kind of loses its niche at that point.
No, this is perfect for on your lunch break.
Yeah,
or you've got half an hour or an hour before the rest of the group arrives. That kind of situation.
Yeah,
that's where it shines. I'm sure there are lots of people who would commit to this, and batter through a campaign and just play it for hours and hours and end. I don't see myself doing that, and I certainly don't think we'd ever have the time to commit to a campaign for this, given how little we commit to campaigns for other games. But going back to what it actually does, the dice are great quality. Yeah. The cards are decent quality. The wooden tokens, it's a standard set of wooden cubes like you get with Love Letter.
Yeah.
They're not perfect because you've got your hearts on your character
too big for the playmat, aren't they? But it's just, it's a small.
Well, that could have easily been solved. There's the artwork on the card here. As soon as these dice arrived, they could have just said, "Okay, we just need to extend that box a little bit." Across the bottom of the artwork, so you're not even losing anything, and make it so that it fits the dice in.
Yeah.
But it's a super minor complaint. The components are nice. The cards are nice.
The box is tiny.
The box is teeny tiny. You won't even notice it on your shelf.
You get that on your hand luggage on a plane or on a train.
This is something
if you go to centre parks and you don't want to fill the back of the boot up
in the swimming pool.
Yeah, why not?
But you see people all the time, like on forums and stuff, saying, what games can I take when I'm traveling or on a plane and stuff. And I reckon you could easily take this. It's very portable. Take it on the road with you and stuff. There's a weird thing where if you get a card, if you defeat a card, you have to slide it under your character, and that I can get
to slide around a little bit.
Yeah, they slide around quite a lot, and you could lose a skill underneath your character if you're not careful.
Yeah.
But again, really, really minor complaint there. It's a neat little trick. It's a neat mechanic.
Well, it's a game that's chock full of those like little moments when you're like, oh, that's cool, and that's a nice way of resolving that.
Yeah,
and then, they all build up to make this quite fascinating, fun little game. Like you're saying, it's not too meaty, but there's enough going on there. It just keeps it quite fresh and exciting, and it was fast paced. Once we got our heads around the rules, then we weren't really stopping for a lot.
No, it really. I mean, towards the end, it was a race to see who could beat the card without the other noticing.
Well, I noticed as well, by the time that we'd leveled up our characters, we'd start with 4 pink dice and 2 blue dice each, and then by the end of our turn, we've got 6 black dice and a load of yellows came out of nowhere when we've been using our combos and power ups. And it's quite interesting. So it's we just keep bringing in new dice, re-rolling them, and bringing the old ones out.
Yeah,
and it just kept it.
It didn't serve us very well in the first game.
No.
Where we were brutalised.
But we didn't advance as far. But we still had fun with it. And in the first game, though, we did hit a brick wall, didn't we? We were doing really well until all of a sudden we were dead.
Yeah, it was extremely
monster killed both
unexpected.
of
We were
us.
sort of hitting our stride.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, just, oh, no, we're dead. It's game over.
Oh, yeah, that's what happens. Almost anticlimactic, really. But
Yeah, I think that probably, just comes down to our experience of it. We should have seen what was coming. We'd used up our healing potions and stuff. So
yeah, definitely.
I think we're in more of a perilous state than we anticipated.
Yeah. Well, those potions never hung around.
No,
apart from
the
first
second
one.
you earn it, it's gone.
That's it.
But yeah, no, it was cool, and we did. We were interested enough that there were other games on the table that we could have played tonight.
Yeah.
But we were quite happy to play this 3 times in a row instead of breaking something else out. So I think that speaks to how quickly and easily it is to set back up and just dig back into another delve.
That's it, yeah. And when you were reading the rules, we were trying to work out a few rules. I managed to just work out one of them by looking at a card. And based on the icons that we've used for other abilities, we just translated that to a new ability. And that worked really well. So it's quite
I think you figured out more rules by looking than I figured out by trying to remember.
But then on the flip side, there's the flea mechanic, there's open doors, there's some sort of ambiguous phrases in the game that when you do visit the rulebook to try and work it out, then it's not immediately clear. One of them was the fine that you have to pay for clearing traps, and it wasn't straight away. We thought we had to use heroic dice to pay that, but it ended up being you had to whichever skill you chose to complete that challenge is what you then put on the extra.
So if you choose to run past it, then you're going to put agility dice onto the dungeon dice.
That's it, yeah. So it's an extra dice slot on the dungeon deck.
The dungeon deck gives each card an extra ability.
Yeah.
And it wasn't clear what ability that was supposed to be, and that's because you choose,
Exactly. So, but again, minor.
Yeah, there's a couple of Google searches, wasn't there?
Yeah,
bring us up to speed.
But yeah, it didn't really harm it.
No.
But I can see why in a one-player game you might not have had as much fun as well, because what I did notice was with some of the characters, you're just absolutely toasted when it comes to an attack. So the rogue has absolutely no sword dice to speak of.
Yeah.
So if you're playing a rogue on your own, I know as a one-player game, it's balanced differently. So you'll be different.
You get more health and stuff, and then I think that's when that fleeing would come into it more. Whereas I don't think we fled one thing. That wasn't speaking to our bravery. It was just we didn't realize you could, and then when we figured out that you could, it was a bit too late. But yeah. So when you flip a card, you can decide whether or not you want to go in and fight it or just try another room. And if you try another room, there's a chance that enemy that you then reveal might get boosted by the fact that you didn't beat the previous one.
That was it, yeah. Or you just left it alone, wasn't it, to be an open door. I think sometimes, unless there's a special armor mechanic in play, then you don't have to completely cover up all of the squares for that monster. You just have to do enough damage to see it off and survive.
And then you can take a hit and so basically every square that you don't cover with your dice is going to leave a bit of damage or time damage. So time is a factor in the game as well. You flip cards from the dungeon deck to spend time exploring, and that gets you down the levels faster. It's, again, another sort of weird mechanic. Thematically, it's strange. You're just discarding cards, but it emulates the passage of time quite effectively.
Especially when I had an ability where I could spend 2 time in order to get 1 hero dice, which we were just using for toffee at the beginning until we got towards the stairs, and then all of a sudden I stopped using it.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting choices to be made when it comes to that. And again, it's it doesn't overcomplicate the game because it's a mechanic that's always in play. You're just choosing to speed it up or slow it down. And with some of the trap cards as well, some of the easier options will burn time, whereas the harder option will just let you get through quite quickly.
To roll higher.
Yeah. Roll an awful lot more dice.
Yeah, it's very much a game where you benefit from rolling high. So if you don't like being beholden to dice rolls, no, that's not fair. There's lots of dice mitigation in it.
Yeah.
But you can definitely win or lose on the turn of a die.
Oh, definitely,
or the turn of many.
The first few rounds before you start leveling up or bringing items in do kind of feel a bit slow when you're restricted with what dice you've got and you can't do a lot to change it. But the second the items start coming in or you start adding new skills, and level up, then the game completely changes and the pace just picks up so dramatically. And it's not long before you really are like stomping all over monsters and you forget how weak you actually were, comparatively at the beginning of the game. It's a really nice way of speeding up the whole dungeon crawl process. I'd say it's like if you like a game like Munchkin, but you hate all of the one-upmanship and FU cards that come out of it, and you just like, can't we just get along? Can't we just play competitive, cooperatively? Then this would be a really good addition to your collection, to your repertoire. Yeah, because it's that it plays similarly, but you're not fighting each other. You're working towards a common goal.
I have to say, I've never played Munchkin.
Have you not?
Yeah, but from what I've heard, I've no desire to.
It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a introductory board game. It's with someone playing games as meaty as you do, I don't think you'll get too much from it. And there are some card games that do similar things maybe better. But yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's a great drinking game. It's a great one for playing in the pub.
I think we're getting sidetracked though.
What
are your summary opinions then of One Night Dungeon? Would you play it again, or
definitely? I'd definitely play it again. I used 2 of the classes this time round. I'd like to see how the other classes played. The mage, loads of magic dice, nothing else. I don't play any health. It'd be interesting to see how that one works out, and it'll be interesting to just kind of like dabble with the campaign. But like you're saying, I don't think I'd have the patience to continue with the game all the way through it. I think the game probably it's just a bit too light for me to want to take it up that much. But again, I love these games where you can just bring them out on a weekend away with some mates, and it doesn't take too much time to teach everyone, but then it doesn't take too much time to play it as well. You can just rinse through a few games and then put it back in your bag because you've got to get back in the car and go to visit some house somewhere. It's a great
insight into Leki's social life.
Exactly. It's a great game for killing a bit of time. It'll just burn up half an hour and then
or more.
We can leave it.
I mean, to be fair, it did consume pretty much a whole evening. We squeezed in a quick game of Rallyman at the start with the little one, and I thought, we'll just play a quick game of this and then we'll play out, our evening's game. And no, that was it. It's One Night Dungeon for the whole night, which is it's kind of again cool. Speaks to sort of how kind of addictive the gameplay is.
Yeah, I know this game you were mentioned before. It was destined for the swap shop. Would you consider taking on the new One Night Dungeon, the Forest Encounters? Or do you think it wouldn't be enough of a change?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it could bring that would radically change the gameplay, and I don't think it needs to. It's found its audience. It's been hugely successful, and for what it does, it's high up there, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah,
and I think the people who do enjoy it would just want more variety. So they'll be wanting a different deck full of different monsters, different characters, different abilities, and everything. And as long as the Forest expansion provides that, I think that's perfect. And long may they continue producing these, because it's a brilliant area of the market to cover. It reminded us both, I think we both mentioned Unbroken, the upcoming solo dungeon crawler game, which I think looks a bit more serious and probably a bit more up my alley personally. But I like this as a counterpoint to, breaking out Kingdom Death Monster or, like one of the massive big dungeon crawly games. To sort of get that fix and play through it quickly. It's a great alternative to Friday or Honouring, those very small box 1 to 2 player or solo type games.
And again, you can't overlook that it's satisfying that 1 to 2 player market. Low player count games are so hard to find.
Well, this is a discussion I've had with a few retailers and distributors. Not to get too sidetracked, but the game that I designed, 1066 Tears to Many Mothers, is a 1 to 2 player game, and I was advised against producing that. The retailers were saying, don't do it. Make a 4 player game or a 5 player game, because no one's going to buy a 1 to 2 player game. And well, I wouldn't say but this shows. This kind of game shows. Oh right,
I was showing my derision at his opinions.
But it just shows, these games are hugely successful. One Deck Dungeon and Unbroken are hugely successful. I'm not talking about mine. Because I think there is that niche and that need.
Yeah.
And, for couples who are into this kind of thing, it'd be perfect to, roll out a quick game. Oh, we got lunchtime together. Or if you've got a mate at work and, you're playing this over a couple of weeks, this, if I still worked in an office, it'd be a perfect thing to break out on a lunch break. And perhaps actually, if you and I were still working together in an office at lunchtime, we could batter through a campaign of this. And that would be quite a fun way of doing it. You just get like that, 45-minute, hour-long chunk every day. I think that would maybe be the perfect experience for it. As it stands in terms of, meeting up once a week for sacred game night, I do wonder if we'd see it again. Or if you'd request it, maybe at the start of the night before the other guys get here or something.
Yeah, or maybe a game to play before a bigger game with with Raphael.
Yeah.
But then we couldn't do it because there's 3 of us.
Well, then you'd have to get the forest one.
Well, there you go. So I see what you mean there. Yeah, it's a nice light game. For 1 to 2 players, it's absolutely brilliant.
Or 3 to 4 with the expansion or second session.
Yes, you were correct there. So it'll be interesting to see what everyone's thoughts are, if anyone's got it at home, if they've played it. You could pipe up and tell us what your experience has been with One Deck Dungeon, and let us know if there's any games that play similarly in different themes, perhaps. So that's that decided then. One Deck Dungeon, it's pretty decent. It's a neat game.
It's a very neat game, and very compact. Brilliant at what it does.
Nice. Okay then, well that's us for this week. We'll see you next week for another episode of Board Chitlist.
Goodbye.